Caleb didn't mean to ruin the entire senior showcase. He only meant to fix a light bulb. But 10 seconds later, half the stage went dark. A violinist screamed, and everyone blamed him like he'd personally unplugged the sun. That was the first time Emilio Reyes looked at him. Not kindly, not cruelly. Just intently, like Caleb had walked into the world on the wrong cue and somehow still caught his attention. Caleb never forgot that look. But this isn't a story about first glances. It's a story about how Caleb Nguyen, film major, professional overthinker, chronic bad luck magnet, accidentally became the lucky charm of the most heartbreakingly talented musician at the Manhattan Academy of Performing Arts. And how that blessing felt a lot like a curse before it ever felt like love. And love was never the plan. Not for him. Not for me. Definitely not for the universe that kept smashing us together like some cosmic matchmaking intern who didn't understand personal boundaries. The fall semester had just started. The air cold enough to sting but warm enough for hope. I had transferred in from a community college in Oregon, thinking a prestigious arts academy would magically turn me into a confident filmmaker. Instead, it turned me into an anxious mess trying not to break anything worth more than my tuition bill. My first week, I lived on caffeine, instant noodles, and pure panic. I was late to 3 classes, bumped into a dance major mid-pirouette, and on Friday, tripped on a guitar cable that sent someone's expensive amp crashing to the floor. That someone, unfortunately, was him, Emilio Reyes, the music department's rising star, the name whispered in practice rooms, the face featured on every event poster. He played guitar and piano like his emotions were too big for his body, like sound was the only place his heart could fit. Puerto Rican American, tall, effortlessly magnetic. The kind of boy who made people spill coffee on themselves just by walking past. He wasn't supposed to be there when I crashed into his equipment. But he was. I heard a low voice behind me. "You okay, man?" I turned. The sunlight caught his curls. His guitar pick dangled from a silver chain against his collarbone. He looked like trouble wrapped in talent. And I, being me, responded with the only logical words. "I'm so sorry, that wasn't my fault. This floor is slippery. I swear I didn't mean to destroy your amplifier. Please don't sue me." He blinked, then laughed. A warm, startled sound, like someone who didn't laugh easily. "Relax. It's an old amp. I've broken it worse." I didn't know it then, but those words would come back to haunt me. Because everything that came after was infinitely more breakable than an amplifier. The academy lived and breathed energy. Choir students belting in stairwells, painters splashing color in courtyard studios, dancers stretching on every flat surface. Everyone knew who Emilio was. Everyone except me, apparently. After the amp incident, I kept running into him. Dining hall, library, courtyard, practice rooms. I assumed it was coincidence. He assumed I was following him. The truth lived somewhere awkwardly in the middle. One cold morning, I found myself filming a documentary project in the music building. My cinematography professor said, "Capture a moment that feels alive." I wasn't expecting to capture him. I opened a door, and there he was sitting at a piano in an empty hall, sunlight washing over him like a spotlight blessed by God himself. He played with a kind of painful gentleness, like every note was a memory he didn't want to touch but couldn't let go. He didn't see me. Not yet. He hit a chord that sounded like heartbreak trying to apologize. I forgot to breathe. Then he looked up, and for the second time our eyes met because of my accidental chaos. "Oh, it's you," he said, eyebrows raised. "The guy who wrestles with stage lights for sport." Heat burned through my face. Why does every embarrassing thing I do get witnessed by the same person? "Sorry, I'll go," I whispered, but he shook his head. "No, stay." 2 words. Soft, steady, dangerous. I stayed. I listened. And for a moment that lasted maybe a lifetime, I wasn't a nobody. I was someone being allowed into a private world made of music and unspoken stories. When he finally stopped playing, he asked, "What were you filming?" "Just life, I guess." He studied me, head tilted, jaw softening. "You look like someone who sees things other people miss." No one had ever said something like that to me. Not even my parents, who mostly assumed my film major was an elaborate cry for help. His compliment felt too big for my chest. Want to help me with something? He asked suddenly. I blinked. Me? You? He tapped a notebook filled with messy chords. I'm stuck on a composition. I need new perspective. I had known the boy for 7 minutes. I barely understood music beyond Spotify playlists. So naturally I said, sure, I can. Perspective. He smiled at me like I'd just given him a gift. If I had been paying attention, maybe I'd have realized that was the moment things shifted. The moment I stepped into his orbit. And orbits have gravity. The kind you don't escape from. We met the next afternoon in a small rehearsal room that smelled like wood polish, sheet music, and quiet dreams. He was tuning his guitar when I walked in. You actually came, he said, sounding a little surprised. You actually invited me, I shot back. He laughed again. I was starting to understand he only laughed like that with people he trusted. Or wanted to trust. So what exactly do you need help with? I asked. He played a few gentle chords, then stopped abruptly. I can't figure out the bridge. It doesn't. Click. I don't know what it's missing. Maybe it needs a story, I offered. He stared at me. What kind of story? The kind you're scared to write. Something flickered across his face. Vulnerability. Fear. Defiance. You're a film major, right? He asked. Tell me what this song feels like to you. He played it again. Slow. Tender. A little cracked around the edges. It felt like someone reaching for love but expecting their hand to be slapped away. I told him that. His breath hitched. That's exactly it. We talked for hours after that. About music. About art. About the strange loneliness of chasing dreams that always felt slightly too big. He told me he grew up in Miami. That his family wasn't rich. That music paid for his place at the academy. And sometimes he whispered, I'm scared I'm gonna mess it all up. I understood that fear better than he knew. When we finally left the practice room, he walked beside me even though his dorm was in the opposite direction. He bumped his shoulder lightly against mine. Thanks, Caleb. For what? For not assuming I have everything figured out. I swallowed. You don't? He snorted. Absolutely not. That night, I lay awake in my dorm bed, replaying every second of our conversation. Every smile. Every glance. Every almost touch. I told myself I didn't like him. I told myself he was just being friendly. I told myself it wasn't possible. But the truth was loud, insistent, impossible to ignore. I was falling for him, and I was falling fast. The next week revealed something strange. Every time I showed up to his rehearsals, things went right. The mic that usually cut out suddenly worked perfectly. The pianist who always played off-tempo miraculously didn't. The string section, notorious for petty drama, behaved like saints. Emilio started calling it the Caleb effect. I hated it. He loved it. You're my lucky charm, he declared one afternoon, tossing a crumpled energy drink can into a trash bin from 10 feet away. It swished in perfectly. See? Proof. That's not proof, I argued. That's caffeine accuracy. He pointed at the trash can, smug. Lucky charm. I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly saw God. But secretly, felt nice. Too nice. Dangerously nice. Rumors spread. People started asking me to attend rehearsals like I was some mystical arts academy talisman. Someone even asked if I could bless their saxophone. I refused on moral grounds. But every time Emilio said, "You coming to my practice today?" in that soft, hopeful tone, I never said no. Because being wanted by him, even for something silly, felt like breathing warm air after years of winter. Felt like belonging. But with closeness comes complication. And with complication comes pain. The first crack appeared on a Friday evening. Emilio and I were walking back from an open mic night where he performed a new version of his song. A version inspired, he admitted quietly, by our conversations. He was glowing. Alive. Confident. I'd never seen him so radiant. But as we crossed the courtyard, a girl called out from the fountain. Emilio. Tall. Blonde. Perfect posture like a ballet dancer. Which, as it turned out, she was. Her name was Lila Carrington. Senior dance major. Everyone knew her. Everyone wanted to be her. She walked like the whole world was a stage she'd already conquered. She ran up to him, breathless, gorgeous, unbothered by my existence. You killed it tonight, she gushed. He smiled politely. Thanks, Lila. She leaned in, still thinking about collaborating. My winter showcase is still open if you want to submit a piece. His shoulders tensed. I'm not sure yet. She touched his arm in a way that made my stomach twist. Come on. You know you'll say yes. He didn't answer. She finally turned to me, noticing I wasn't disappearing into dust like she expected. And you are? Caleb, I said stiffly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Cute. Then she winked at Emilio like I wasn't even standing there. See you later, superstar. When she left, I stuffed my hands into my jacket pockets and tried very hard not to look hurt. She seems confident, I managed. He groaned. She's relentless. She's been trying to collaborate since freshman year. You should. She's incredible. He looked at me sharply. I don't want to work with someone who doesn't see me. She just sees what I can give her. I nodded, trying not to overthink his words. We walked in silence for a while before he added softly, people like her don't matter. Not the way you do. My heart plummeted through the sidewalk. But before I could respond, a group of students called his name from across the quad. He gave me an apologetic smile. I'll see you tomorrow? Always, I said. And that was the problem. I meant it. The second crack came sooner. One night, while reviewing footage in the editing lab, I overheard two music majors whispering near the vending machine. Heard about Reyes? What now? He's been off his game. Some professor says he's distracted. Probably dating again. He'd better not screw up the winter editions. Please. He always screws up when he's got a crush. My stomach dropped. A crush? On who? The next morning, Emilio asked if I wanted to help him test a new melody. I tried to act normal. I failed spectacularly. You okay? He asked, brows furrowed. Totally. Great. Perfect. Thriving. He stared. You're lying. Yes, I was. And I hated it. But how was I supposed to ask the question burning in my chest? Are you distracted because of me? Was that delusion? Hope? Fear? Maybe all of it. And then the night everything broke happened. It was raining. Hard. The kind of rain New York City throws at you when it wants to test your will to live. I was soaked after running across campus to return a borrowed camera. When I passed the music hall, I heard shouting. Two voices. One angry. One tired. I recognized his. I recognized hers. Lila, you're wasting your talent, she snapped. Turning down showcases? Blowing off opportunities? For what? For me? I thought, terrified of the answer. You don't understand, Emilio growled. Then make me. There was a beat of silence. Painful one. Then he said quietly, there's someone else I want to work with. Someone who sees me. My lungs froze. Lila let out a cold, sharp laugh. So this is about the boy. My heart stopped. Boy? I pressed myself against the wall, pulse slamming. He didn't deny it. Of course it's about him, she hissed. You're risking your future for some nobody? Don't talk about him like that, he said, voice low. She scoffed. He's not your lucky charm. He's your downfall. You're ruining everything because you're obsessed. My breath broke. Silence. Long, dangerous. Then he shouted. I am not obsessed with him. My chest cracked. Not because he denied it, but because of the desperation in his voice. The fear. The shame. I didn't wait to hear another word. I ran, and ran, and ran, because the truth was clear now, cold as rain soaking my skin. I wasn't his lucky charm. I was his distraction, his liability, his mistake, and I couldn't let him ruin everything because of me, even if it meant breaking my own heart. Caleb didn't remember running back to his dorm. All he remembered was the rain soaking through his jacket, the pounding in his ears, and the sick twist in his stomach that wouldn't let him breathe. By the time he slammed the door behind him, his hands were shaking so violently he dropped his keys twice before they hit the floor for good. He pressed his back to the door, chest heaving. Obsessed. Downfall. Mistake. The words replayed like a broken film reel, each one slicing deeper. And the worst part wasn't what Lila had said. It wasn't even that Emilio had yelled. It was the crack in his voice when he said he wasn't obsessed. The desperation. The fear. Like caring about Caleb was something he shouldn't want. Something wrong. Caleb slid to the floor, pulling his knees up to his chest. His throat tightened until swallowing hurt. He should have known better. He always did this. Always cared too much, too fast. Always read kindness as connection. Always mistook warmth for meaning. Rain hammered the window. The storm outside matched the one inside his ribcage. He ignored his buzzing phone. He didn't open the messages he knew were there. He just curled up and let the ache spread until it filled the whole room. He told himself he'd pull away. For real this time. He wouldn't go to Emilio's rehearsals. He wouldn't answer his calls. He wouldn't be the downfall of someone with a future so bright it hurt to look at. He would disappear. He had to. But somewhere in the back of his mind, a quieter thought whispered, "Then why does it feel like disappearing will destroy you too?" He didn't let himself answer. The next morning arrived cruelly fast. Caleb woke to a throbbing headache and a dozen unread messages from Emilio. "Hey, are you okay? I saw your umbrella by the practice hall. Did you leave in the rain? Caleb, please answer. I'm worried. Call me. Caleb, please." He read them all, heart aching, then shoved his phone face down on the nightstand. Distance. He needed distance. He forced himself through his classes, avoiding the music building entirely. He even took a different route to the cafeteria, one that added 15 unnecessary minutes to his walk. Anything to keep his brain from imagining Emilio looking for him. Every time someone strummed a guitar in the quad, his head snapped up instinctively. Every time he heard footsteps behind him, he felt his breath catch. But it was never him. Each non-encounter was both relief and disappointment wrapped into one confusing punch. By late afternoon, Caleb was exhausted. Emotionally, physically, spiritually, the whole spectrum. He headed toward the editing lab, hoping the cold hum of computers would numb something inside him. But the universe, in its signature chaotic fashion, had other plans. Because Emilio was already there, standing in the hallway, waiting. Caleb froze. Emilio looked up the moment he heard footsteps. His eyes found Caleb's like they'd been searching every second. And oh God, he looked wrecked. Dark circles under his eyes, hair a mess, hands nervously gripping the strap of his guitar case. He must have been there for a while. Caleb's instinct screamed at him to turn around, to run. But he couldn't move. Not when Emilio whispered, "You disappeared." Caleb swallowed hard. I needed space. For me, the pain in his voice nearly broke Caleb in half. Caleb looked away. "I heard you. Last night. You and Lila." Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Emilio stepped closer. "Caleb, I didn't mean what I said. You yelled it," Caleb whispered. "Because she cornered me. Because she twisted everything. Because I panicked." Caleb didn't know what to do with his hands. He shoved them into his pockets. "You said you weren't obsessed with me." Emilio's jaw clenched. "Because what was I supposed to say? That I care about you so much it scares the hell out of me?" Caleb looked up sharply. Emilio's voice cracked. "That every time you walk into a room, I forget what I'm doing? That I play better when you're around and worse when you're gone? That I'm terrified I'm dragging you into my mess, or that you'll realize I'm not worth your time?" The world stilled. Caleb stared. Emilio kept talking, like a dam had broken. "I didn't deny it because I don't feel anything. I denied it because she said I shouldn't. Because people like her think feelings make you weak. And because for one stupid moment, I let her get in my head." He took a shaky breath. "I never meant to hurt you. God, Caleb. You're the last person I'd ever want to hurt." Caleb's throat tightened. "So what am I to you?" he asked quietly. Emilio stepped closer. Close enough that Caleb could see the raindrops dried in his curls, the way his chest rose too fast, the tremble in his hands. "You're the one thing in my life that feels real." Caleb's breath hitched. "You're not my lucky charm," Emilio murmured. "You're the person I make music for." Something in Caleb cracked open. But he wasn't ready. Not yet. Not with last night still bleeding under his skin. "Then why did you sound so ashamed?" he whispered. Emilio flinched. "Because I've never felt like this before, and I didn't know how to protect it. A long silence followed. Painful. Necessary. Caleb searched his face, looking for the truth. He found fear. He found sincerity. He found longing. But most of all, he found something he hadn't dared hope for. He found himself reflected in Emilio's eyes. I need time, Caleb said finally. I need to know I'm not ruining your future. You're not, Emilio said instantly. You're the reason I'm becoming who I want to be. The sincerity in his voice almost knocked Caleb over. But he stayed firm. Time, he repeated. Emilio nodded, though the disappointment was clear. I'll wait. Just don't disappear again. Please. Caleb hesitated. I won't. Just not too close. Not yet. Emilio stepped back, giving him space. Whatever you need. And somehow that hurt and healed at the same time. The days that followed became something strange. A quiet orbit. Emilio kept his distance, but he was always there. Walking a few steps behind him on the quad. Sitting on the opposite side of the dining hall. Passing by the editing lab just once a day like a silent check-in. Never approaching. Never pushing. But never gone. Caleb hated how much it meant to him. He hated even more how much he'd missed him. Their friends noticed. The campus noticed. Rumors noticed. Hey, is Reyes okay? Why isn't he glued to that film kid anymore? Did they fight? Did they break up? Were they even a thing? Caleb pretended not to hear. But the truth was simmering, growing, shifting, like a melody waiting for the right moment to resolve. Everything came to a breaking point on a Thursday evening. Caleb was filming a sequence on the rooftop, capturing the cityscape at dusk. The wind was sharp, the sky bruised purple. He felt steadier than he had in days. Then he heard footsteps behind him. Slow. Familiar. He didn't need to turn. Emilio. He kept filming. Emilio stayed silent for a long time before speaking. My auditions are tomorrow. Caleb's fingers tightened on the camera. He'd forgotten. For the first time since he'd arrived at the academy, Emilio had never missed a winter audition. This one mattered. This one could change everything. Good luck, Caleb said softly. His heart wanted to say more. His fear didn't let him. But then Emilio whispered, I want you there. Caleb froze. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a demand. It was raw, pleading honesty. I play better when you're in the room, Emilio continued. I breathe better. I think better. I feel grounded. Like I'm allowed to want things. Caleb swallowed. That's not healthy. Maybe. Emilio stepped closer. Or maybe you're the first thing in my life that feels like it matters for more than ambition. Caleb turned then. Emilio stood just a few feet away, eyes filled with something dangerous. Hope, fear, longing. I don't want you as a lucky charm, Emilio said. I want you as you. The wind pushed against them, cold but alive. Caleb's heart beat painfully. If I show up, he whispered, voice trembling, it can't be because you need me. Emilio nodded slowly. Then come because you want to. Caleb blinked, startled. Emilio's voice was steady. I'm done asking you to save me. If tomorrow means anything, it's because I choose my future. But if you're there, maybe I'll believe I deserve the good things in it. Something warm and terrifying bloomed in Caleb's chest. He looked down at his camera. He looked up at Emilio. He looked inward, at the storm of fear and longing fighting inside him. I'll think about it, he whispered. Emilio exhaled shakily. That's enough. And for the first time since the night in the rain, they shared a moment without breaking. Caleb didn't sleep that night. He stared at the ceiling, replaying every word, every look, every soft fracture in Emilio's voice. Tomorrow, the auditions. What if he ruined things again? What if showing up made it worse? What if not showing up made it worse? But beneath all the fear was something quieter, something stubborn. He wanted to be there. He wanted to see Emilio shine. He wanted to hear him play. He wanted to support him not as a charm, not as a distraction, but as someone who cared, someone who maybe loved him. At 3 a.m., he finally made a decision. He didn't fall asleep afterward, but he wasn't tired. The next morning, The academy buzzed with the kind of electric tension that only major auditions could spark. Students rushed through the hallways. Doors opened and slammed. Voices whispered, prayed, panicked. Caleb walked toward the audition hall with shaking hands. He didn't know if this was right. He didn't know if he was ready. But he knew one thing. He didn't want to run anymore. He reached the door. He stepped inside. And Emilio was already on stage, mid-tuning his guitar. Their eyes met. Emilio inhaled sharply. Caleb took one step forward. Then another. And Emilio's entire expression changed. Relief. Warmth. Something close to awe. Like Caleb wasn't a mistake. Like he wasn't a downfall. Like he was the one thing Emilio had been hoping for all along. The moment Caleb stepped into the auditorium, the room shifted. Conversations softened. Even the judges, strict and unreadable behind their long table, paused long enough to glance toward the door before resuming their notes. But Emilio didn't look away. Not once. He stood frozen on stage, fingers hovering above his guitar, breath caught in his throat like someone had just handed him back something he thought he'd lost. Caleb walked slowly, weaving through rows of seats until he found one near the front. Not too close. Not too far. Just close enough to be seen if Emilio looked for him. Which he did. Every few seconds. As if reassuring himself that Caleb was real. That he was here. That he'd chosen to be here. When the judges finally signaled for him to begin, Emilio closed his eyes. His chest rose, fell, then rose again as he searched for air steady enough to hold him. And then he played. Not like before. Not like all the times Caleb had heard him rehearse. Not like the boy drowning in expectations and ambition. This was different. His fingers moved with purpose, not panic. His voice, when it joined the melody, was warm and rich, carrying something raw beneath every note, something that made the room lean in. Hope, fear, honesty, and under all of it, something that felt like a confession meant for one person. Caleb. He felt the message in every chord, every breath between lyrics, every trembling crescendo that seemed to say, "You're why I'm brave enough to try." Caleb didn't realize he was crying until a tear hit his knuckle. He wiped it away quickly, hoping no one noticed. But Emilio noticed. Of course he did. In the middle of a performance that could determine his entire future, his gaze flicked to Caleb with a tenderness that nearly broke him. And then the last note hung in the air, gentle but sure, before dissolving into silence. The room didn't breathe for 3 full seconds. Then applause erupted loud, genuine, overwhelming. Emilio bowed slightly, but his eyes never left Caleb. Not even for a second. When the auditions ended, students spilled into the hallway buzzing, anxious, hopeful. Caleb stayed seated in the empty auditorium until the noise outside thinned. He wasn't avoiding Emilio. Not exactly. He just needed a moment to breathe, to steady the trembling in his hands. The door opened quietly. Caleb didn't turn. Footsteps approached slowly, like their owner wasn't sure he was allowed to come closer. Then Emilio sat in the row behind him, close enough that Caleb could hear the shaking in his breath, but far enough that their shoulders didn't touch. "I didn't think you'd come," Emilio said softly. Caleb smiled faintly. "I wasn't sure I would." "What changed?" Caleb stared at the empty stage. "You asked me to show up because I wanted to. For once in my life, I let myself want something without running away." Emilio exhaled shakily. "And did you want to be here?" "Yeah," Caleb whispered. "More than I expected." Silence settled around them, gentle and warm. Then Emilio leaned forward, resting his arms on the back of Caleb's seat. "I meant every note," he murmured. "I wasn't playing to impress them. I was playing so you'd understand how much you matter to me, even if I never said it right." Caleb's throat tightened. "You don't have to prove anything." "I'm not proving," Emilio said. "I'm choosing." Something in Caleb's chest stuttered. "Choosing what?" he asked quietly. "You," Emilio said without hesitation. "I choose you. Not because you make me better at music. Not because you show up to rehearsals. Not because you make my life easier. I choose you because you're the one person who sees me when I'm not performing." Caleb's breath hitched. "Emilio, I'm not asking for everything right now, he continued. Just let me be in your life. Not as a project. Not as a lucky charm. As someone who cares about you. A lot. Caleb stared at the dim glow of the stage lights. For so long, he'd feared being wanted only when convenient. Only when needed. Only when useful. But this wasn't dependency. This wasn't panic. This wasn't pressure. It was choice. His and Emilio's. Caleb turned around slowly to face him. Emilio's eyes were shimmering, hopeful in a way that made Caleb's chest ache with something bright. Okay, Caleb whispered. Emilio blinked. Okay. What? Okay, yes. You can be in my life. If you still want to. A laugh, small, disbelieving, relieved, escaped Emilio's lips. I've wanted that since the day you yelled at a professor because he called my melody flat. It was flat, Caleb said. And you still defended me. I was right. You were nervous. Emilio shook his head, smiling. God, Caleb, you drive me crazy. Caleb's pulse quickened. In a good way, in the only way. Their eyes held. Caleb felt the shift in the air, the slow magnetic pull between them. Not rushed, not desperate, just inevitable. But he didn't lean forward, and Emilio didn't push. Instead, Emilio extended a hand open, gentle, asking permission. Caleb stared at it, then placed his hand in Emilio's. Warm, steady, right? Emilio's fingers curled around his, squeezing lightly. Come on, he murmured. They'll post audition results soon. And I want you next to me when I see them. Caleb squeezed back. Okay. The hallway was crowded again by the time they reached the bulletin board. Students jostled and whispered, craning their necks to see the list taped to the wall. Emilio kept Caleb close, not clinging, not hiding, just present. A few people stared. A few whispered. Neither of them cared. Finally, the crowd parted just enough for Emilio to see the names. His breath caught. Caleb's grip tightened instinctively. Well, he whispered. Emilio didn't answer. Then his shoulders shook with a quiet, disbelieving laugh. He stepped aside so Caleb could see. There it was. Emilio Reyes, ranked first. Caleb's chest flooded with something fierce and proud and overwhelming. You did it, he breathed. Emilio turned to him, eyes bright. We did it. Caleb shook his head. No, this was you. I just showed up. That's all I wanted. And then, without thinking, without hesitating, without fear, Emilio pulled him into a tight embrace. Caleb stiffened for a heartbeat, then melted into it. Warmth pressed against warmth. Heart against heart. Breath against shoulder. Safe. Real. Right? The hall buzzed around them. But they stayed still, two boys finding something soft in a world that often felt sharp. When they finally pulled back, Emilio rested his forehead against Caleb's. So, he whispered, voice trembling with something close to joy. Where do we go now? Caleb smiled, small, genuine, hopeful. Anywhere we want. Emilio kissed his cheek. Then let's start here. And for the first time in a long time, Caleb believed him. Believed in them. Believed in a future that was scary and beautiful and entirely theirs. The beginning, not the end. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.